heard David Giordano speak several times. You are in for a treat. I have never heard the less than excellent speech from him. And tonight he's going to talk about the Convention of States. He's the regional director of the John Birch Society coming from New Jersey. So I just pass it over to Dave.
Thank you. How many of you, well, first let me tell you a little bit about myself, because when anybody comes to the room, it's not really about me, but I'm thinking you might say, who is this guy? So I'm the regional field director for the John Birch Society. My direct territory is Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and Delaware, but I supervise other coordinators from Virginia and Maine. And I've only been on staff for 2 years, but I'm hardly new to the John Birch Society. I've been with the John Birch Society for 30 years. When I was about 32 years old, I said something's really wrong with this country, and it's not the Democrats. So how many of you are familiar with the John Birch Society or ever heard of the John Birch Society? Okay. So for those who have never heard of the John Birch Society, let me tell you that it was founded by Robert Welch. Robert Welch was a genius. He mastered algebra by 6 years old. He went to college at 12 years old, and he graduated from college at 16 years old. And the difference between the Birch Society, one of the reasons I joined, is because everybody else was about politics, and I started to see this is bigger than politics. He dared to use the C word. He said there is a conspiracy. Not a conspiracy theory. There is a conspiracy. And he is a savant. He named it. He envisioned in his head. He named the players and showed exactly what they were going to do. And what's the first job of a conspiracy? It's to convince you there's no conspiracy. But once you expose the conspiracy, it just falls to pieces. The conspiracy falls to pieces. And so Robert Welch started the John Birch Society to expose the conspiracy, and that's how we're going to win. Because there is a conspiracy to take over this country. It's been going on before any of us in this room were born. It was named after John Birch. John Birch never knew what the John Birch Society was or is. John Birch was a missionary, went to China just to preach about God. And while he was there during World War II, Doolittle and his Flying Tigers ditched their planes in China. And those who lived, someone went to John Birch, said, "Can you help them?" He said, "Yes." And he saved all the ones that were alive. He saved them all. And then he was commissioned into the military. A few days after World War II ended, we were making a decision to support Chiang Kai-shek, Mao Zedong, an agrarian reformer. And John Birch was walking through the woods of China, reporting to Eastern China, a military mission, and he was murdered. And our government hid it. Because if the American people knew about it, we couldn't have handed over China to a communist. Our government handed China over to communist Mao Zedong. So Robert Welch thought there was no other individual that represented love for God and country than John Birch, and that's what the John Birch Society is named after. So, I also want to tell you, I am not a conservative. I am a constitutionalist. And you'll find out why. This presentation, you see movies where there's a plot and a subplot. You're going to see a plot and a subplot here. That's why I call it Dangers of an Article 5 Convention and the Deep State. So there's an organization out there called Convention of the States, and it's headed by Mark Meckler. And they believe we should reel in the federal government. There's too much government spending. We got career politicians. We need term limits. Well, first of all, it's not really that new of an idea. This is the New American Magazine publication of the John Birch Society, 1995 issue, when it was called the Conference of the States. They just rebranded it in 2014, called the Convention of the States. Governor Leavitt was pushing it. I went door to door to stop my state representative from voting for it. This is the Wall Street Journal saying far-right movement is trying to torpedo plans for conference returning powers to the states. Why do we need a conference to return powers to the states? I thought the Constitution was very clear. Let me explain something to you. The federal government, as created by the founders, can do nothing except what's in Article 1, Section 8. It's a short list. The federal government has no power except what's listed. The enumerated powers are all in Article 1, Section 8, and that's all they can do. And they even added amendments, like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, that said Congress shall not. Second Amendment, Congress shall not. Third Amendment, Congress shall not. What you or I are not allowed to do, but what the federal government is not allowed to do. And finally, the 10th Amendment, as the former president of the John Birch Society, John McManus, used to say, they added that, and that basically said, and if we forgot anything, you can't do that either. So, the Convention of the States, if you go to the Convention of the States website, I support a Convention of the States project, a national effort to call a convention under Article 5 of the United States Constitution. Restricted, they throw that in there for safety measures, restricted to proposing amendments that will impose physical restraints on the federal government, limit its powers and jurisdiction, and impose term limits on its officials and members of Congress. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sign me up for 2. The problem is the Constitution already does that. If you look at the founders, listen to Thomas Jefferson says, Congress has not unlimited powers, but only those specifically enumerated. Where are they specifically enumerated? In the Constitution. Where in the Constitution? In Article 1, Section 8. In that short list. It's already listed what they can do. What more are we restricting? James Madison said the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Where are they defined? In the Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8. It's all right there. Let me explain something. The Constitution is not broken, doesn't need to be fixed. The Constitution is ignored, and it needs to be obeyed. That's the problem. We move on, and what they're proposing is an Article 5 convention. There's only 2 ways to amend the Constitution. There's not a third way. Okay? The first way is Congress sends out amendments, proposed amendments to the states for ratification. They ratify those amendments, it becomes amendment. The second one has never been used. It's called an Article 5 convention. So the Convention of the States says it can't be a runaway convention. Well, how do you know that if you never had one? Unless you believe in the Nancy Pelosi philosophy, we need to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. Yeah. Maybe we need to hold a convention to find out if it could be a runaway convention, which it was a runaway convention in 1787, when the 13 colonies, I like to say the first 13 countries, because they really were countries. They were very much against each other and didn't even want to sign the Constitution. And they sent delegates down to Philadelphia with specific instructions to revise the Constitution. That's what they were told to do. Now, the Convention of States argues that, but you can go get deep into the weeds, and that can be proven. That's not what you're proving tonight. But when they got to that convention, once you hold that convention, once those doors shut, they can do anything they want. They can change the rules, and they did. Because Rhode Island didn't even send a delegate down. They said you can't change anything because you need 100%. And you know what they did? Well, we changed the rules. We only need 3/4 now.
6-year-old and I can't.
And they just scrapped the whole Articles of Confederation, came up with an entirely new government. Luckily, we had Thomas Jefferson, Madison, men of moral character. Do you think we have that today? Not even close. Not even close. So that's a convention. Now, Convention of States says, oh, it's not a constitutional convention. It's a convention of the states. Now, we do have, if you go to the John Birch Society website, we can go into detail. I'm not going to get into all the detail. But there's only 2 ways to ratify, to amend the Constitution. Through Congress and an Article 5 convention. There is no convention of states. But just let's go there for a second. Black's Law Dictionary is the dictionary that's been used in the legal profession for over 100 years. And it says, what is a constitutional convention? It's a duly constituted assembly of delegates, which they're proposing, or representatives of the people of a state or nation for the purpose of framing, revising, or amending a constitution, its constitution, Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution provides that constitutional convention may be called on the application of legislators of 2/3 of the states. So of 2/3 of the states. So they want this convention. We're going to find out why they want this convention. But they act as if the states are, first of all, they say the federal government doesn't want this, which you'll find out that's not true. That we're going to reel in and we're going to control the whole thing. Let me explain something. Once that application, once they get 34 states and they hold that convention, the states have nothing to do with it. If you read the Constitution, it says that Congress takes over at that point. So we have no idea who the delegates will be. We've never had one before. We don't know how they'll select those delegates. Do you think George Soros is just going to sit by and watch this thing happen? Do you think people with deep pockets? We have no idea who's going to be the president of this convention. No idea who's going to run the whole thing. And then their excuses for the convention itself. Because they just want the convention, so they need excuses. Well, we need a balanced budget amendment to reel in the federal government. The government's spending is out of control. No one's arguing with that. What if we follow the Constitution? 80% of spending would be gone. We're not following, which I can never understand. They're not paying attention to these amendments, so we're going to propose new amendments that they're going to listen to. So what they have is a balanced budget amendment. So if you follow the Constitution, we wouldn't have an unbalanced budget. For example, foreign aid. Anyone find foreign aid in the Constitution? All foreign aid is in the Constitution. All of it. Even if you think it's good. You know, Congressman Smucker down in Lancaster County was out, and we have these scorecards that we give out. And someone asked Congressman Smucker, he's a Republican, what do you do when a bill comes before you? He said, well, first I look if it's a good bill. Wrong answer. First thing you do is if it's constitutional. Yeah. Because if it's unconstitutional, you vote against it. Right. That's why they call Ron Paul Dr. No. He said every time a bill came across his desk, he gave it to his legislative assistants, said, look at it, find out anything constitutional. He said, usually it only took 1 or 2 pages, and then he voted no, because it's unconstitutional. They swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. Right. That's their oath. So they want to pass a balanced budget amendment. Well, first of all, it's not going to work because, okay, so here you have a budget, and they just have to raise taxes, and now it's balanced. See how well that worked? Is that what you want? Is that what you wanted? It's now balanced. Oh, before foreign aid was unconstitutional, but now, according to Mark Levin's amendments, Congress has to approve it. Well, Mark Levin, you just made something that was unconstitutional, now constitutional, because if it's balanced, then they can pass it. Doesn't matter. Also, in the balanced budget amendment, it is not valid during times of emergency. We have about 43 states of emergency right now. We have the war on COVID, we have the war on global warming, we have the Ukraine war, now we have another war. So the day it's passed, it's obsolete. They just want the convention. And that's why they keep coming up with other excuses, like we need a line item veto. I won't even get into that. We need the amendment to stop hacking to the court. Yeah, we do need all these things, but we don't need a constitutional convention. Now, one of the things proposed is called the lame duck thing. So a lame duck, if I'm a congressman and I get voted out in November, then there's a short period of time that's not a good period. That means I have about 1 month in office to do any damage that I want. Why? Because I can't get elected again. So stuff I wouldn't even dream of passing, I am now want to pass. I'll pass. So that's a lame duck Congress. Well, this lame duck amendment, who would be for this? This lame duck amendment would extend for Congress that lame duck section, not just 1 month, but for 2 years. Wow. Anybody want to vote for that? Well, how about 6 years for the Senate? Lame duck instead of 1 month, we're going to extend the lame duck for the Senate for 6 years. You want a lame duck? Anybody want a lame duck session? I have a feeling a lot of people support that and they don't realize it. It's called term limits. Okay? So if I'm a congressman And I have 3 terms, 3 two-year terms. My first 2 terms, you call my office, I say, why don't you come in, what's your concerns? How can I help you, right? The last term, talk to the answer machine. Why do I need to talk to you? What possible reason would I listen to what you have to say? You can't elect me. I'm going to lunch with the lobbyists. If I'm a senator, okay, first 6 years, I'll listen to everything you say. But the second 6 years, I'm out to lunch with the lobbyists. I am a lame duck. What Convention of States doesn't tell you is that term limits were in the Articles of Confederation. They forgot to tell you that. Do you think that these guys that went through the Constitution with a fine-tooth comb, they debated every single word? We forgot about term limits being a figure. It was in the Articles of Confederation. They took it out for that reason. For that very reason. People say, well, we got to get Nancy Pelosi after all this. Well, who voted Nancy Pelosi in office? Her electorate. When she gets term limited out, who are they going to vote in? Nancy Pelosi 2.0. It's the same electorate. The only way to change that, and that's what the John Birch Society is about, educate and change the mind of the electorate. That's the only way. And then why would I not want to vote back in a real constitutionalist like Thomas Masson? You're going to take that power away from me? That's only taking power away. So the founders actually took that out of the Articles of Confederation, out of the Constitution. And they gave us something different. And we're not doing the job. They gave us a House of Representatives. Oh, they gave us an executive branch, a president, with the least amount of power in the Constitution. Then they gave us a Senate, 6-year terms, but they gave us a House of Representatives with 2 years. Only 2 years in this district, not a whole state, not a whole country, in this district. And you know what else the Constitution says? All legislation originates from the House. All. Not 99%, all. All revenue originates from the House. So all revenue, if you control all the revenue, you write all the legislation, that's it, right there, game over. And that's in your district, and the day that your congressman gets voted in, all of us as electorates watch them, and they're only in office for 2 years, and they're already looking at another election. We're not doing our job. The founders gave us frequent elections instead, so that the congressmen will be on their toes. We're not doing our job. But no, we want to pass new amendments to the Convention of the States. So, Hamilton said, nothing appears more plausible at first sight, nor more ill-founded upon close inspection than term limits. One ill effect of the exclusion would be the diminution of the inducements to good behavior. And then Governor Morris from New York said term limits tend to destroy the great motive to good behavior. So these things here are just the cheese in the trap. They want the convention. The solutions they gave are not going to fix anything. They just want the convention. Because once you hold that convention, you can do whatever you want. You can revise the Constitution, you can scrap the Constitution, for whatever reason. Convention of States says that Article 5 was put in to rein in and out of control government. That is not true. The amendment process was put in to fix defects in the Constitution. Defects such as we had slavery. So we passed an amendment, we fixed the defect. Women's right to vote. We passed an amendment and we fixed the defect. What, I got to change that slide. I updated it and I lost my hard drive, so I missed the new one. Thomas Jefferson said the rights, so how do we pull in a federal, it's called a nullification. Thomas Jefferson wrote about it in the Kentucky resolutions. Madison wrote it in the Virginia resolutions. He said, if a law is unjust, a man is not only right to disobey, he's obligated. Obligated, took an oath. That means your state representative took an oath to enforce Article 6. See, the John Birch Society says no to Article 5, yes to Article 6. Article 6 says any law passed becomes supreme law of the land. And there's 3 words that are very, very important. And somebody said something to me about treaty. Who said something about treaty? 3 important words. When pursuant of. In pursuance, that means in following of. If it's in following of the Constitution, then it becomes the supreme law of the land. If it's not in following of the Constitution, then what? It does not become supreme law of the land. Who decides that? The states. The states decide that. Your senator can stop. Your senator can say, oh, those vaccine mandates or masks or gun laws, we're not doing that. And they don't have to have an explanation. We formed you. You didn't form us. He goes on, Hamilton goes on and says, a people enlightened enough. You know what, I love this quote, and I threw it in there, and I didn't put it in the right place yet. I've been looking for this quote, but it's worked, because we were talking about stressing education. Hamilton said, a people enlightened enough to distinguish between a legal exercise and an illegal usurpation of authority. So, okay, nullification. This is a new slide. I put this in there. So, if the federal government passes a, quote, law or a dictate that's not in pursuance thereof of the Constitution, then the people are the natural guardians, and we're to say, no, we're not doing it. That is not one of your enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8. And that's covered in our booklet, Article 6, which I ran out of. I think I have this one up here. As a piece you might want to take home. Then there's something about credibility, okay? The Convention of States. We're going to test their credibility a little bit. This is about 5 years ago. Alex Newman, senior editor of New American Magazine, and he's interviewing Dorothy Moon, representative from South Dakota, I believe. And she said, you know, she was getting these, no, Idaho, I'm sorry. For some reason I thought she was down in South Dakota. And she's going through the petition. She's like, oh, I know these people. She called them up and said to them, you know, why do you support this? They're like, I don't even know what it is. What? She started questioning, and she had a lot of that. And then, recently, more recent this year, Chris Gomez, the New American, interviewed some state legislators, such as Sarah Payne. And she said, I was on the fence, I wasn't sure, but then I started to think, this is not a good thing. And she said, I started getting emails about it, and I respond to all my constituents' emails. And as I responded to them and said, why do you support COS? They're just like, what's COS? What are you talking about? And then to the point where Convention of the States contacted her by email and said, oh, we understand you've been asking questions about the responses, and you know, at one point they may have signed one of our petitions and we were doing them a favor by letting their legislator know how they feel. Well, the John Birch Society doesn't do that. If you want to go to our website, we have action alerts. You can put your name in, which I'll get to later, but you have to initiate it. We don't do anything for you. Then there are other, you can go to our website and listen to these interviews. These are other state legislators, including State Senator David Johnson, who said he got a petition from his own wife. He didn't even realize his own wife. Of course, she didn't realize it either. So you can listen to those interviews. I'm not trying to go through them. But then I like to call the not so great one, Mark Levin's telling his followers that left-wing liberals are against the Congress. That's it, just the left-wing liberals. Well, this guy here, George Soros, in our 2014 issue of the New American, George Soros, well, what's his goal? What does he feel?
To bring China into the creation of a new world order.
To bring China in the creation of a new world order. Think he might be promoting a constitutional convention? Think he might want to break this country down? All right, so he's supporting, there's that article up here, who's behind the Constitutional Convention. He's supporting an organization called Wolfpack. I hate using these words when I'm going to the far left, because I don't like to use far right, far left. I wish they would ban both words, so we could just stay on the issue. But then, this is a 3-minute clip I'm going to play from the DVD we have. You can watch it on YouTube. It's about 90 minutes of Robert Brown of the John Birch Society, and he does a deep dive in Convention of the States and the Constitution. It's very, very good. But this is a 3-minute clip from him.
In fact, I did a little research and found a few liberal organizations that have publicly endorsed calling for an Article 5 convention. Here's the list I came up with. I found a few. In fact, in total, I found around 500 liberal organizations that are publicly endorsing this plan to have an Article 5 convention to propose changes to the Constitution. So yes, liberals are interested in this process as well. In fact, one notable liberal, law professor Lawrence Lessig, a little bit of his resume, he was an Obama campaign advisor. Good liberal resume there. He was a 2013 Bilderberg attendee. He started such organizations as Call a Convention and Mayday PAC to promote this idea of having a Article 5 constitutional convention, and he has declared his intent. He says it's time to rewrite our Constitution. And he's seeking a truly open and constructive Article 5 convention where everything's on the table. Similar to Sanford Levinson's plan there, isn't it? Let's write a new Constitution. Now, it won't surprise you that one of the organizations that he is supporting is Wolfpack. This is a liberal organization that has financial ties to George Soros. And their plan is, we want an amendment to the Constitution that makes all political campaigns publicly funded with your tax dollars, to eliminate the corruption of money in politics. Now, of course, that also makes government the gatekeeper of who gets to run for office or not. I don't see any problems with that, do you?
Yeah.
This is Robert Brown. We flew him in from Utah last year, and he spoke in Bucks County on this subject. And that's changed it a bit. He's got quite a few pieces on it. Excellent, excellent. That's right. Mark Levin says the left doesn't want a constitutional convention. Well, here's three Democrat, very liberal, in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, right outside Philadelphia. They just introduced H.R. 183, calling for a convention on Article 5 for term limits. Now, again, until I spoke to you, many of you probably were sure you wanted term limits, or some of you, but hopefully you were questioning that right now. But these liberals that Mark Levin says don't exist are pushing for a constitutional convention now, on Article 5. Now this is Gavin Newsom. He's the liberal, I guess, right? He's pushing for a constitutional convention to propose 28th Amendment for gun control, using an Article 5 convention. Now, about a year ago, Dr. Malone, I don't know if all of you know Dr. Malone, inventor of the mRNA technology, very much against it, how it was used. He was at one of our events, and he said now he knows what it's like to be a little out up front and get your head chopped off. I'm paraphrasing, because he now respects the John Birch Society for that. And he said you should probably check out the John Birch Society's view on the Constitutional Convention. Convention states had a bad week that week, because right after that, Glenn Beck came up and said, you know what, I changed my mind. I'm not for a constitutional convention. He said, we're not the people to open this sacred document. We are not the people. That was a God-inspired document. I withdraw my support, and I'm sorry to say, but I withdraw my support. This Constitution is wholly inadequate for anyone other than a religious and moral people. We are not those people. So then we have Rick Santorum now all over Newsmax and all. He's our new spokesperson. We figure he's probably getting paid $240,000 a year. Why do we know that? Because I haven't seen, but Tom Coburn before him was getting paid, according to 990 forms, to support the convention states. Tom Coburn died in 2020, so he's their new spokesperson. So I have a little issue with this. If you don't have one of these, make sure you grab them. I have more back here. This is called the Freedom Index. I call it the Truth Serum. And what the John Birch Society does, we put this out every 6 months. And we take 10 bills, and if it's unconstitutional, we give them a minus. And if it's constitutional, we give them a plus. The reason I call it the Truth Serum is you can't sit there and say, oh, it's the Democrats' fault. Because I'm looking at Pennsylvania, and Perry, in Pennsylvania, Congressman Perry, got a 100. He's a Republican. Fitzpatrick, who's also a Republican, on the same bills, got a 40. Same bills, we're not favoring anybody. So it's not good enough to be a Republican. You gotta be a constitutionalist, and that's why I said I'm a constitutionalist. Now, our man up there, Rick Santorum, his score, his lifetime score, if I remember, is about 66. All right? And then his last term, I think it was about 44 out of 100. So a guy who can't abide by the Constitution is advising us that we need a convention to revise the Constitution. Not a good guy to take advice from. There is our Freedom Index right there. Make sure you grab one. Here's another one, Lindsey Graham pushing for Convention of States. Also, Lindsey Graham is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which we're going to get into in a little bit. Remember I said we have a plot and subplot? Okay? Well, Lindsey Graham's lifetime score is a 57. 57% he abides by the Constitution according to our Freedom Index, and he's supporting revising the Constitution. Now, you know the guy I want to find out how he feels? Thomas Massey. He gets 100. That's the guy I want. Thomas, do you think we should have revised have an Article 5? He says at this point in history, an Article 5 Convention of States would be a disaster. Show me a single state where constitutionals comprise the majority of the state legislators. Do you think even these state legislators are constitutionalists? I mean, we have Act 8077 here in Pennsylvania. I mean, and you're going to put these guys in control? Convention of States goes on to say that Reagan, Jefferson, Scalia, Anton Scalia, all supported a constitutional convention. I'm not sure about Reagan, but we know what Jefferson says. Jefferson says nullification is the right vote. And I never did quite, I don't want to get off track, but as to your thing about a treaty, treaties cannot supersede the Constitution. Well, the World Health Organization, all that. They have to be in pursuance for it to be a legal treaty. Because I remember when I was in a Tea Party like 12 years ago, I kept saying to me, look, it says that the treaties become the law of the land. Yes, when pursuant. When they aren't pursuant, as Thomas Jefferson said, if we could just write a treaty, then we don't have a constitution. Well, let me get back to this. So Jefferson said it was nullification is the rightful remedy. But I don't know why Mr. Levin, the not so great one, goes back to 1979 and says Professor Scalia supported a constitutional convention. Actually, yeah, Professor Scalia did in 1979. He learned a lot since then, because in 2015 he said, a constitutional convention is a horrible idea. This is not a good century to write a constitution. In fact, he went on to say this.
Amendment. If you could amend the Constitution in one way, what would it be and why? Justice Scalia.
I certainly would not want a constitutional convention. I mean, whoa. Who knows what would come out of that? But
And then they go on and say that the federal government doesn't want a constitutional convention. That's why the states are pushing it. We're going to reel in the federal government. The only thing is, Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania last year introduced 8419 on July 19th, 2002, calling for a constitutional convention. And then that passed, that did not pass, time expired. And now this year, in March 14, 2023, HCR 24, calling an Article 5 convention for proposing fiscal responsibility amendments to the United States Constitution. So the federal government, I thought the federal government didn't want a constitutional convention. Why do we need amendments to reel in the federal government spending when the Constitution is very clear and defined, as Madison said? It's few and defined, are the words he said. It's right in the Constitution, but we're going to revise that? Can't get any clearer. You know why? I told you. They want a convention, constitutional convention, for the new constitutions that they have written, including this one. This is the Constitution for the new states of America. It was written by the Ford Foundation, where 50 states would be dissolved into 10 states. We would all be disarmed with this Constitution. The globalist Constitution. The president would have 9-year terms. Then we have other constitutions sitting waiting for this constitutional convention, like the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America from the Communist Party, USA. And then we have this Constitution Center right down here in Philadelphia, right? We're right in the same state. What places I go to, I get these presentations. This is right from their website. This is the Progressive Constitution. They decided 2 years they're going to have a Constitution contest. Write a new Constitution. Of course, the Constitution Center down in Philadelphia is a globalist organization funded by globalists. It was Rockefeller funded. Right? They're going to have a Constitution contest. That's one of them. You can pull it off the website. Here's another one, the Libertarian Constitution. And we would, well, we don't have much borders now, but they wouldn't eliminate the borders. I think they've already accomplished that. And then, this is the dangerous one. This is the Conservative Constitution. And this Conservative Constitution was written by Robert P. George. And Mark Meckler of Convention of the States called Robert P. George the foremost conservative constitutional scholar in America. He's on as an advisory board. And he wrote this conservative constitution that was submitted to the Constitution Center down in Philadelphia. And in it, let's look at just a part of it. Anybody a big Second Amendment rights persons? All right. This is part of his conservative constitution. Let's look at the Second Amendment. Neither the states nor the United States shall make or enforce any law infringing the right to keep and bear arms. It's pretty good so far. Of the sort ordinarily used for self-defense and recreational purposes. Provided that states in the United States in places subject to its general regulatory authority may enact and enforce reasonable regulations like putting a mask over your face or any of those type and being in your house by standing 6 feet apart. There's reasonable regulations on bearing of arms and the keepings of arms by persons determined with due process, like January 6th, to be dangerous to themselves or others, which I would be considered dangerous to myself and all of you, since I would not accept an unauthorized injection into my body of gene therapy shot. And if any of you have attended a school board, you're certainly fall under that category, right? You're dangerous to everyone and yourself. And that's in a conservative constitution that was submitted to the Constitution Center in Philadelphia. Now, he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Remember I said in the beginning there's a plot and a subplot? We're going to get into the subplot. Who's the Council on Foreign Relations? Let's go a little further. This is, it's the same thing. This is David Rubenstein. He's on the board of trustees at this Constitution Center that's holding a contest to write a new constitution. He's also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum. Do you think this guy with the World Economic Forum and the Council on Foreign Relations, who's helping to hold a constitution, a project to write a new constitution, and Robert P. George is on Mark Meckler's board, is that of any significance to any of you? Well, let's get a little bit deeper into this conspiracy that Robert Welch warned us of. This is David Rockefeller, and in his book, you can look at it, page 405, he said that I've been accused, my family and I have been accused of being part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, even communists, and characterizing my family and me as internationals, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political economic structure. One world, if you will, and if that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud. These people aren't hiding it. They're telling you. They're laughing at you. I am conspiring to destroy your country and bring us into a one world government. That's my goal. And he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And he said this.
A special televised meeting of the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations provides a window to the real story. The speaker, Vice President Dick Cheney, takes a question from David Rockefeller.
Vice President, I just liked so much your whole speech, but I was particularly pleased that you gave such a strong endorsement for the free trade agreement for all the Americans. subject that has been of great concern to me for many years, and particularly recently, and I think it's absolutely essential for the strength of our economy.
Now, most people who watch this, I'm going to turn this part off, who watch this say, oh, this little old man is congratulating the second most powerful man in the world. He's one step away from the President of the United States, the greatest country in the world. Now, if you remember the John Birch study, you go, oh yeah, the guy in charge of the audience just said to the guy he put in office, thank you for supporting the FTAA, which I wrote all about there, in here. Thanks for doing it. And you know what the FTAA is? The FTAA, the conservative George W. Bush was going to merge North America and South America. That was his plan. So, let's take a listen. So the guy
Continental Commission, founder and honorary chairman, David Rockefeller. Rockefeller's influence also extends to the current administration. He was chairman emeritus of the CFR when Vice President Dick Cheney once served as a director, a relationship that Cheney concealed during his congressional career.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
So you forgot to mention that. And this is the New American Magazine from 2004. If you remember the John Birch study, you knew about the FTA to merge North America and South America. So we understood it when we heard things like this.
My administration will work closely with Congress toward this goal and to take another step toward completing the free trade area of the Americas.
Yeah, he's a conservative. Did I say I'm not a conservative? I'm a constitutionalist. So he was going to merge with it. See, the former world government, you can't get all the countries of the world to join the world government. It's like herding cats. So what you got to do is form regional governments. You get, it took them 50 years through free trade agreements to form the European Union. They formed the African Union in 2002. They're working on the Eurasian Union. Now, they tried a little too hard with the FTAA, but then they started pushing the North American Union. Our conservative George W. was working on the North American Union. And I lost this video. I know I have it somewhere, my hard drive crashed. So I'll interpret it. This is candidate Obama when a young guy asked him, first he throws him a softball compliment, and then he goes with a zinger and says, so are you and your wife a member of the Globalist Council on Foreign Relations, and what do you know about the North American Union? And his response is, I don't know if I'm a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, but I've spoken there before. He says, but it's not like there's a membership, and there's a card, people carry around a card and the audience laughs. That's pretty amazing, because the Vice President just said he was a member. And he said he was a director, in fact. So then he said, as far as this North American, he says, what? Oh, Union, the North American. He goes, I don't see anything to that. So that's what he said. And then the Council on Foreign Relations actually is probably the most powerful organization that tells our government what they should be doing.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
And then this is Richard Haas, President of the Council on Foreign Relations. And this isn't very loud, so it's very short, it's about 5 seconds, and he's sitting there and says, I guess I should say, I'm Richard Haas, I work here at the Council on Foreign Relations. And Biden says,
I should introduce myself. My name is Richard Haas, by the way. I work here at the Council on Foreign Relations.
And I work for Richard. So, there is a conspiracy, if you have any doubt of it. This is Professor Carol Quigley's book. He's a Georgetown professor. And he said in his book that there does exist and has existed for a generation an international Anglophile network which operates to some extent in the way that the radical right believes the communists act. In fact, this network has no aversion to cooperating with the communists and any other groups, frequently does so. I know of the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years and was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and secret records. How do I know he's a member of the council, or he's Bill Clinton's mentor? How do I know that? I don't know if I can put that video up. No, I don't. There's a video, like I said, my hard drive crashed, I missed a couple videos. It is basically Bill Clinton saying he's my mentor. And you go to another page, and he says that the argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideas and policies, one perhaps to the right and the other to the left, is a foolish idea acceptable only to doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical, so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound shifts in policy. So when Obama was running against John McCain, people said to me, "Oh, you're going to vote for John McCain?" I said, "No." "Oh, that's a vote for Obama." I go, "It doesn't make a difference. John McCain's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. They play for the same team, just as Professor Carol Quigley said, Bill Clinton's mentor." And then when Mitt Romney ran against Obama, I said, "No, I won't vote for him either." "Well, you're giving your vote to Obama." I said, "You're not educated enough. You don't understand. The policies don't change. They appear to be a little bit more conservative to you. But he's also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations." So what is the Council on Foreign Relations? The Council on Foreign Relations was started by Edmund House, different cover. Here's the book. Edmund House wrote this book. He said, "I believe the world government is described by Karl Marx." That's what he said. That would make him a Marxist. And he called this fictional world government in his book the League of Nations. It was Woodrow Wilson's right-hand man, and he helped try to start the League of Nations. And, Woodrow Wilson said he's the first man I see when I wake up, the last man I see before I go to sleep. He's my alter ego. And he helped get several planks of the Communist Manifesto. He graduated income tax in 1913. We had no income tax. There was zero income tax. He was a plank of the Communist Manifesto, a centralized banking system called the Federal Reserve. You don't get that proof. He also eliminated the state representatives voting U.S. senators. And now we have direct elections to our U.S. senators, moving us from a constitutional republic more toward a democracy. And everybody knows we're not a democracy, just in case anybody doesn't know. Well, democracy doesn't appear in the Constitution, doesn't appear in the Declaration of Independence or any of the constitutions of the 50 states. I don't have time to go deep into it. We have a whole presentation on that because it's very important. But my short version is the difference between a democracy and a republic. Democracy is in two wolves in a sheep, vote on what's for dinner. Okay? The sheep has no rights. In a republic, the sheep has rights. It doesn't matter if there's a majority. It's a rule of law. The law says the sheep has rights. Minorities have rights in the republic. In a democracy, you have no rights as long as you have a majority vote. So I could get deeper into that, but I'll get off track. So what's the Council on Foreign Relations want? Oh, Dave, you're such a conspiracy theorist. It's not a theory. Rockefeller told us. You go to the Council on Foreign Relations website, you can download the document, Building a North American Community. I don't know if it's still there. And then Lou Dobbs told us back when he was on CNN. He said this.
The Bush administration's open borders policy and its decision to ignore the enforcement of this country's immigration laws is part of a broader agenda. President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it, and he took the step without approval from either the U.S. Congress or the people of the United States. Bill Tucker reports.
Yeah, well, he got a bullet through his living room window, and then he went to Fox, and then Fox took him off about a year ago and put a member of the Council on Foreign Relations to replace him. So we stopped, the John Birch Society stopped the North American Union when most people didn't even know what was going on. We got that issue out, 100 million in certain people's hands, and stopped this North American Union. At this point, you might be saying to me, what the heck does this have to do with Article 5 of the Convention of States? We're going to get to that. This is 2005. What did Professor Quigley say? Vote the rascals out at any given election without any profound change in policy. Well, the policy's still there, up on the White House website this year, is the Declaration of North America. They're not secure any borders because their plan for decades has been to merge Mexico, Canada, United States, like the European Union, to bring us into the world government. Now my question here is, these three countries have different constitutions and laws and things. They got to have one constitution. How would you do that? How would you get a new constitution? Convention of the States, Article 5 Convention. You can get this information. I think I only have one book left, unfortunately. I'm not running out. I left them at home. I'm running out. But I have one of the book on the right, and quite a few of these, maybe about 10. These are only $1 if you want to know more about the Council on Foreign Relations. The book is 10. I don't have the other one. Well, Robert Welsh, founder of the Birch Society, let's wrap things up. He said, what's the solution? Well, there you see the Blue Book. I'm rereading the Blue Book. I read the Blue Book 30 years ago when I joined. The Blue Book is, when Robert Welsh started the John Birch Society, he had 2 days, he invited his closest business associates, 11 of them accepted, and he laid out the conspiracy and what the communists are doing. And he went one step further. There's a layer above the communists. The communists are their tools. Here's a group of people, I don't know who all of them are, but maybe the George Soroses and things like that, who are using communism to break us and bring us into a world government, which God isn't included in that world government. And we'll lose our sovereignty. But Robert Welsh formed the Birch Society. The second day he explained the solution. And the Birch Society would educate the people on these things and then take action. And he said there's just one thing, only one thing in the whole world which the communists fear today. It is that despite their tremendous influence in our government and overall our means of mass communication, the American people will wake up too soon to what has really been happening. And what is now happening right under their very noses. The only thing which can possibly stop the communists is for the American people to learn the truth in time. So since 1958, when the John Birch Society started, we've been trying to educate people the truth in time. And when I first joined, I remember hearing some people saying, if it wasn't for the John Birch Society, this country would be gone. And I thought, that's a pretty bold statement. Now that I'm a member 30 years, it's absolutely true. We would have had our North American Union, we would have had whatever. But then they go on to tell you, they tell you what they're going to do. This is our conservative Republican president, right? And he tells you what we're doing.
Of its founders.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Not the U.S. founders, the UN's founders, which was started by communists on both sides of the table. That's another presentation. Madison said people who secretly want to get rid of our Constitution would push for a convention under the pretext of getting amendments. And Alexis de Tocqueville, a French philosopher, he loved America. He wrote about it. And he said, every citizen is taught the history of his country and the leading features of this Constitution. It is extremely rare to find a man imperfectly acquainted with all these things. And a person wholly ignorant of them is sort of a phenomenon. Think about that. Is that today? No, it's the opposite. Is the Constitution broke? No. Does it need to be revised? No. We're broke. We haven't taught our children this. The Constitution doesn't enforce itself. We need to enforce the Constitution. It's a paper. It's a guideline. And I'm going to leave with this, and I forgot this book. I should have brought it. Matthew Trewhella's Doctrines of the Lesser Magistrates, and it really gets into nullification of the states. Your state representative shouldn't think about rejecting. He's obligated. He swore an oath to uphold, he or she swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and they are obligated to nullify unconstitutional law. And this is Matthew Trewhella. It's about 2 minutes. Take a listen.
The question is how to resolve the problem that we have with the Constitution being ignored. In Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution is where the oath is found for all magistrates. And the oath that you take is not an oath of subservience to the federal government, nor is it an oath to uphold the federal government's immoral, unjust, unconstitutional laws, policies, and court opinions. Your oath is to the Constitution itself. And it's your duty, your God-given duty, to check them, to interpose against their evil and stop it. So it's extremely important that you uphold your oath, which you took in the sight of God, and that you check this federal government that has long left the constraints of the Constitution which men fought, bled, and died to establish in this country. Do your duty, check them. When it comes to the money, just quit taking the money. Wisconsin takes more money than we pay in to the federal government. Quit taking money. You don't need an Article 5 convention of the states to do this. You have the authority to do it now. Your authority is there, it's God-given, and you need to exercise it. And that's my brief thoughts today.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Nope.
Hearing no questions, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Madison went on to say, having witnessed the difficulties and dangers experienced in the first convention, which assembled under every prodigious circumstance, they should tremble for the result of the second. So the John Birch Society has the tools, we have information, we have DVDs, we have booklets. Say no to an Article 5, you break up, buy all these separately, or buy this pack for $10. Bring it to your state legislator. Also say no to an Article 5, but say yes to Article 6. Remember what Article 6 is? Enforcing constitutional law. That means nullification. Nullifying a law is upholding the Constitution. You're the guardian of the Constitution, as Hamilton said. If you go to our website, this is our homepage here, and go to the website, our homepage, you go to Take Action, click on State Alerts, and then a map of the United States will show up. I forgot to change this, I was supposed to be in Maine for this. You click on Pennsylvania, and some alerts will show up here. A whole bunch of alerts, you pick your ones for your state, you can go to federal. And when you click on, you put your name and address in, and it'll send a letter to your state representative with your email address, if you've done that. And there's another feature, which I haven't used, but some of our members have. It says click on and have a video. Hi, I'm Dave Giordano, Congressman so-and-so. Congressman, I got Andy Kim. You know, please vote for the American Restoration Act of the United States. Thank you. So now they're getting an email with these people's faces. Can you imagine every email now has a face? That's good. So you can do that too. One of them you can go to, one of the alerts, is this one. Members of Pennsylvania General Assembly are seeking to pass, and it has the bills which would apply Congress for a constitutional convention. Click on the green action button, send a letter out. You can even change the letter. If you don't like it, you want to add something, you can edit it. You can also send it to your representative and rescind all applications. If there are applications, rescind them. They have 19 states. In 1983, they had 32. They needed 34. The John Birch Society, along with Phil Shafley's Eagle Forum, and some other organizations got the law all the way back. We got them to rescind any calls for a constitutional convention. And we have other information like this. There's Slim Jims up there, pamphlets. Slim Jims are two-sided, pamphlets are opened up. DVDs, there's a couple Slim Jims. Another email alert, take action, nullify. These are the people that you got to focus on. So, right? Is that, if I got that right?
Yes.
Misspelled legislator, I'm sorry. I did that right before the meeting, so forgive me. I think, or find out who your state legislators are and bring this information to them. I didn't have time to put it up there, nor do I want to extend the meeting too much longer. But we have something new. I was out in Wisconsin yesterday called Article 5 Academy. And we have these hour-and-a-half videos explaining, but we have them cut up into little bite-sized from 2-minute to 5-minute videos. Different aspects that are bad about the Article 5 Convention. And what we have our members, you can share them with people. And our members are even going to assign different members in a year when they have a legislative session and testimony. You'll memorize one, you'll watch one, and you'll watch another, and you'll watch another. And then we'll go to the legislator, and that's what you have to do. So, Dave, I can't really speak. Just 2 minutes. Just watch the video and just repeat what's in the video. I'm against the Constitutional Convention because it could be a runaway convention and just read that part. Then the next member reads another reason why it's bad. Next member reads another. It's brand new on our website. We haven't even completed it yet. We also have something called scorecards. These things are dangerous to the representatives. And he has a pretty good scorecard. These are individual scorecards. We have a Freedom Index that shows them with the federal, with the state legislators, we have individual ones. And we had one member down in Atlantic County, New Jersey, Republican conservative, got a 30 on his scorecard. And Steve handed them out to everybody. About a meeting about the size of this, maybe a little bigger. And the representative is all happy, you know, he's in front of people like politicians are, and he's talking, and Steve asked him a question about why he voted. And the representative got a little, uppity and angry because he's showing his vote. Well, there were other people in the audience that started, and Steve was very loud. Other people in the audience started looking at the other bills and said, well, why should you vote this way? And now, all of a sudden, the representative is accountable. They don't care about rallies. I don't care about a rally. If I was a politician, I wouldn't care about half those people aren't even in my district. Our chapter leader in York, Pennsylvania, met with Senator Gene Yaw. Gene Yaw said, the Republicans said, I don't care about rallies. But these, they care about these. They don't like it. You hand out, this is how you voted on the bill. And this is the Freedom Index. She got a 0.
Zero.
That means she voted against the Constitution 100% of the time. You think if the people knew this, you know, they might vote differently? So, there's her scorecard. So what's the answer? The answer is to go out and educate the people. The members of the John Birch Society hold these Constitution as a Solution classes. I think we just got done 3 of them. Berks County, Bucks County. We've got more lined up. I think Lancaster County is going to start one in January. We got to teach people about the Constitution is the only solution. The Constitution is the solution. That's what it is. So I'm just going to end by saying that this is great. I only think I have one. I usually have a stack of them. You go on shopjbs.org, it's $15. I buy them in bulk, sell them for 10. But if you really don't want to know what's going on, this book is it's not quite a magazine, it's a thick book. They talk about the war on farmers. They talk about election fraud. They talk about transhumanism. And put everything together that's going on. And we just go out and spread the word. And it's not just me, it's other chapters. We have chapters in every county. And I'll be out, where is this? I gotta look at the calendar to find out where I was last night. So Tuesday the 21st, I'll be in Manchester, New Jersey doing the same presentation. And then in January, I will be in Leonardo's in Lawrence Township. And then I was just asked to speak in Lansdale, Pennsylvania on December the 8th, probably on Agenda 2030. And then I'll be in Edgewater Park, New Jersey. And just to show you, you're not alone, because sometimes people sit in these meetings and go, what are us 10 people going to do? Well, There's a chapter, I told you, down in Atlantic County. This is Assistant Chapter Leader Jeff Polkopaki. He said, if you told me 3 years ago that I'd be meeting one-on-one with my congressman, I would have liked it nuts. Here he is, meeting with his congressman, and he's got that issue of the New American, which had the Freedom Index in it, and he showed the congressman what his score was. And Jeff Van Drew was a Democrat turned Republican, and he was interested in seeing what Thomas Massey's score was and what Jim Jordan's score was. And then here we are in Bucks County, our Ben Salem chapter, October 14th. This weekend, we must have had 4 different events. Lancaster County, our Chester County chapter member to Lancaster County, and I spoke down in Atlantic County, nope, that was Ocean County, Fork River, with a couple of our members manning a table. We were out, brand new chapter in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, got the gun club, gun show, we were there just on the 20th, 21st. Our Berks County chapter just finished up a Constitution class. Our other Berks County chapter just watched a DP documentary, which I highly recommend. Mandatory viewing, Uncle Tom too. And then our Sellersville chapter up in Bucks County finished up, and I'm going to end by saying members of the John Birch Society get this magazine twice a month. And if you're interested in becoming a member of the John Birch Society, it's $87, $99 a couple. And in addition to the magazine, the bulletin are the action steps. The bulletin is saying to the members, hey, what isn't mentioned in the magazine, which is mentioned in this month's bulletin, hey, we're putting together this Article 5 Academy, and we're putting these segments together. This is how you're going to use it, and other members are using it. And you should use nullification and how you should use it. You should meet with your congressman and get your other John Birch Society members informed, chapters and such. So I want to end by saying a lot of times people thank me for coming, but what I want to do is thank you, because I can come up here and talk to an empty room. Your time is valuable. The fact that you came here, this room isn't twice as crowded, it says a lot that you want to see here. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions?
Learn a lot here, thank you. On the article, the convention states backing in those liberal groups that you mentioned. My understanding that the convention states is limited to 3 issues which you touched on. When you say they're behind that the convention states, are they behind specifically the 2000, I'll call it 23 convention states? Or is that some other convention states? Are all those liberal groups backing the conservative position trying to limit spending? Though I understand you don't agree with that. But
They're supporting the application of an Article 5 convention. So it doesn't matter if the convention of states making it appear to be conservative or if it's a liberal. If you go an Article 5 convention, once they get in that room, nobody knows what's
But I thought a convention of states has to be specific to certain.
No. In fact,
It does. Convention of States, and I'm a member, and I used to be a member of the John Birch Society. I am no longer a member of the John Birch Society. There are great people in your society, fantastic people. I learned to be a constitutionalist because of the John Birch Society. Convention of States only wants to do 3 things. And they have to stick to what every state legislature passed. Every resolution in every state is the same. You can go to their website, look at the simulation, and the simulation will tell you the 3 things. It's only 3 pages long. That's it. I'm done.
okay, let me address that. They can't because there's rules, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like there's rules for informed consent. There's rules that you can't fire someone unless they get an unauthorized injection. Those are rules too. There are rules. There's all types of rules. There are no such thing as rules anymore, first of all. Second of all, the federal government just is pushing an Article 5 convention. And you know what they said? They said, we'll take any applications. We'll take applications from the Civil War. We'll take rescinded applications. I'll send you those. We'll take those just as long as we can get the 34 states. They can't limit it. There is no precedent. They even said they've never had it. Like I said, we can hold a convention to find out if you're right. Do you think these people are not trying to destroy our Constitution? There are no rules. That is absolutely not true. Maybe on the Convention of States. And there was something else you said that I wanted to address. Now, if I can remember.
There's only three things.
Yeah.
Term limits for Congress, balance the federal budget, and reduce the size of the scope of the federal government. That's it.
And the Constitution already limits. So if you pass a balanced budget amendment, you're actually violating the Constitution. Because as long as it's passed now, foreign aid and a whole bunch of things are now constitutional. Because it's passed.
No, I don't agree with that.
It's passed. We also gave the history of the term limits. What they want is the convention. And the fact that you said that it can only be limited to these.
They have to stick with what the states passed.
That's what they did in 1787. They had to have 100%. They switched it.
If you want to look at
Do you trust in today's environment? Do you actually believe that there are rules? After 2020, do you think that we need election integrity?
Yeah, we do.
Why? I thought there were rules.
Yeah, but there's a constitution too, and there's very same reason people breaking the constitution.
That's right.
So, you know, if I go along with what you're saying, nothing stands, and it's a free fall. Which is why
Right now we're in a free fall. But we have precedent. Yeah.
I got a question. Who brought Act 77 to the state of Pennsylvania? It's these same people that are pushing the Constitution of the state in our state government. This is the same people that we're trying to replace through the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition. We're after these people, and they're pushing it. What effects will that have when it states the Constitution of the state is the states can call for it, but the federal government, the Congress, oversees it? How does that affect us?
No, the delegates run the convention.
The delegates do not run the convention.
They
That
don't.
is wrong.
The
And let me
Congress
tell you
appoints
something
them.
about your simulated convention. One of the amendments that they proposed there is that the states can recall any federal law if they get 51%. Does that sound great? As Joanna Martin said at Birch County Patriots, a former JAG attorney and expert, said that is Martin, it sticks a knife in the gut of the Constitution because under an Article 5, which Convention of the States argues against, we don't need 51%. If I'm the state of Illinois and there's an unconstitutional law, I don't need 51%. All I have to do is nullify it. If you other 49 suckers want to go along with it, you can, because we have 49 countries, not states, just like we had 13 countries, not states. And they were sovereign states, and they reluctantly signed this Constitution to give them limited government in Article 1, Section 8. And that's all the power they have. So during that process, the simulated convention, which they selected people, took them down, had dinner with them, put them up in a hotel, gave them the amendments to pass. How do you think, is that anything that's the way it's going to run? You think that's how it's going to run that way? No. So in that particular situation, they're actually weakening the state's power. But they won't talk about Article 6 Convention of States. Because I've addressed Mark Meckler on it. He denies it. In fact, recently, they said, the Convention of States published, that the Supreme Court is the law, has the final say. That doesn't even make sense. You don't even have to be a constitutional scholar. They wrote the Federalist Papers and such, and they talk to the farmers in simple language about the Constitution. It doesn't even make sense that the Supreme Court would be the Supreme Law. So let me get this straight. 13 sovereign countries want freedom, and we reluctantly signed this thing and form a federal government. The last time I checked, the Supreme Court was part of the federal government. So we're going to form this reluctantly federal government, and we're going to let the federal government decide if the federal government's right. You know, as Thomas Wood said, author of the book Nullification, that would be like if you and I came to a disagreement and we could not make a decision And we said, look, let's go get somebody else to help us out. I'm going to call my mother, and she's going to decide who's right.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? So we're going to get the Supreme Court to decide whether the federal government or the states. No. You know who decides? As Hamilton said, we're the guardians, the states are. And the states decide. The states nullify. So that's the position of the Convention of the States. They came out with their position. The Supreme Court, 9 people were assigned by the President. They decide whether the federal government. The federal government's going to decide whether the federal government. Doesn't even make sense. Any other questions?
There are some people I can't find that want to know how to join.
Oh.
So if you could address that?
Yeah.
I got applications. You can either join online.
Good.
I got applications. You could give me a check. You can write your credit card, or I think I have my credit card name, or somebody will say, I don't want my name on anything. I'll give you cash, and then I go home and put it on my card. So, and I'd be happy. And we have enough. Where's Bobby? So Bobby wants to start a chapter. We have people in this area. We just need somebody to step up and say, I want to start a chapter. So you want to. So, yes.
Okay, I am not trying to be combative at all. I'm also with the Convention of States. I spent 8 months researching each of the points that you brought up, and I'd like to compliment you. I learned a lot personally. I think you're very passionate, very intelligent.
Speak louder, please.
You can hear.
Well, so, for instance, a runaway convention. That particular point. I'm with the Convention of States, and I spent 8 months researching each of the different rebuttals to the problem of the Convention of States. And if I could preface that by saying, I think there's so much more in common with these two organizations than opposed. So requiring 38 states to ratify a proposed amendment means that only 13 states could block ratification of any unpopular amendment because each state would be equally represented. And I also wanted to answer as to the restrictions to a convention. The call of the convention, the call is the first resolution calling for a convention and places limitations on the convention as a whole. The commission is a set of instructions that a state legislator gives to its representatives and can be more restrictive than the call and applies to only that state delegation. So it is true that in part, the Convention of States makes up its rules. But the delegates all have to, it can be thwarted. So if there's a threat of a runaway convention, it's easily thwarted. And for instance,
How's
as
it
to
thwarted?
just because only 13 states can object and say, you know what, we're out. This is not true to the 3 initial proposed amendments, and this is getting out of hand, and we are not going to proceed. So there is so much information here. And I just also wanted to mention, as far as the Justice Scalia quote, in studying this, I learned the most important thing is the thing I think that you could have spent a little more time on, is the distinction between a convention of states and a constitutional convention. A constitutional convention literally gives full reign to rewrite the Constitution. Any one of us could go on AI and ask for a new Constitution. There's lots of scholarly exercises and lots of people who think that they can do it better because that's just kind of human nature. But there are also very, very learned constitutional scholars behind the Convention of States whose motto is use the Constitution to save the Constitution. You have so much more in common than apart. And so just, I would like to ask, I know you mentioned having spoken at some point to Mark Meckler, but would you be willing to review this guide and talk to the leaders of Convention of States in whatever form you're comfortable with to work through it, because I really think there's so much more in common than apart here.
These two groups should come together instead of fighting each other. The only way we're going to win is if we come together and work together.
So I.
Not be slippery, if I may, okay? She is absolutely right. I'm trying to, why have the convention at all if you already have the power? Why would you want an amendment to say balance the budget? And then it goes to hell because you raise taxes to balance that budget. So why have that when you already have the means in the Constitution to stop it? Go to the second one, go to the third one. There's no reason to have it, in my opinion. So you're arguing to have a convention that you don't even need. So that makes no sense to me at all, personally.
Excuse me, sir, can I say something? Hi, I'm with COS too.
We're all passionate about the Constitution, we all have that.
Okay, but the state of Wyoming, during the COVID shutdown, the state of Wyoming, red, 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 everybody's red. Everybody's red Republican. Every part of that government is red. They could not nullify anything, a special session for only the COVID mandates, only. Nothing happened, nothing. So you can't nullify anything. And when it was tried with Jefferson in Kentucky, he was old in Kentucky, one state came on board, that's not enough. You need 38 states. You need 38 states. And then Calhoun in South Carolina, there was one state for nullification.
It didn't shut down.
It didn't work.
It didn't shut down.
Didn't work.
They said no.
There's two types of nullification. There's Calhonian nullifications and there's Jefferson nullification. And Madison said you don't want no Calhonian nullification. Representative from South Carolina misused the nullification. He didn't like the taxes they were putting on. So he said we're going to nullify it for all the states. Well, first of all, import taxes are constitutional. You can't nullify something that is constitutional. So he was wrong there. That's a different type of nullification. So don't get the two mixed up. Madison pointed that out and said we don't want Calhonian nullification, but then he reiterated Jefferson's nullification, which are unconstitutional laws. So make sure you don't get those two mixed up. But in the end, don't ever hesitate to say that you're being combative. You're not combative.
Would you come to the table to talk about these points and see if
Here's
because so many points that the John Birch Society represents, so many of your topics and your beliefs are already common. So would you come to the table and talk with leadership?
Well, I'm not, you know, I have people above me that, you know. In fact, Robert Brown has requested to have a discussion with Mark Meckler.
Okay, well.
And he won't. He challenged him to debate him. I have on video, I can play it. And he's heckling Robert Brown in the halls of the Iowa State. He says, are you an attorney? And Robert Brown says, no. He says, are you an attorney? You're not a constitutional attorney. As if you have to be a constitutional attorney to make any decisions. So none of you should even be here. Let the constitutional attorneys decide for you.
I'm suggesting that
We need people. Because that's what he said to Robert Brown. I have it.
I'm not disagreeing. I don't know. What I'm suggesting is that leadership from each of these groups come together out of the public eye and talk point by point about your arguments, what you stated as the motive.
Robert Brown put $10,000 up.
Listen, if you're willing, we can take it.
Robert Meckler already knows. He says, I'm not taking it.
No. I'm not talking about money, and I'm not talking about a public display. I'm talking about.
No, Ron, and she listens to Robert Brown. He's very calm. More calm. He's very calm.
So that's
because he's from Utah.
That's the
So I come across a little Phil. Now, your points are, I'm glad you bring these things. Right. And in the end, it really comes up to everybody, listen to what I said, listen to what these things like, and read their website, and read our
I'm happy to share a
website.
copy of this guide if anyone would like me to email. I only turns out 2 copies, but if you'd like to see the information.
One other big issue is the difference between your philosophy and ours is we've been doing this, we stopped it in 1982. It is the Constitutional Convention and Convention of States is not the same. No, there is not a convention of states that was
Yeah.
made on the mark.
The Constitutional
Unless,
Convention is
you can get into that on our website. Like I said, I don't go deep into that. But it is on our website, we do address that. And you can get it. But the biggest difference is, let's take a step back. You said you've been studying this for how long?
Well, it's like a year and a half, but
A year and a half.
really 8 months of a lot.
Like I said, I was, when I joined, I was out in 1995, talking about this, and those called conferences. But the difference between our organization is Robert Welch knew there is a satanic conspiracy that wants to break down this country and bring us into a world government by uniting regional governments. And I can come back and do that whole presentation. And if you don't believe that,
Yeah, you just showed us that we push, say what you said.
I only showed, I didn't get deep in it.
But that's where it was going. And that's a Republican leading the ship down the path that you're talking about.
Right.
And we know the Democrats are going to voice.
I'm getting ready to leave. Two things. First of all, he just said a satanic conspiracy. Listen, they're rolling out Satan clubs in schools anywhere in America, right here in our backyard. Back in March, they just had the biggest satanic convention in history in Boston, right? In colleges, they're beginning to roll out degrees in witchcraft, all right? So while we're dealing, how do you destroy a nation? You destroy its men, right? Men are destroyed nationwide, families are destroyed. Where are most of our men? In big, beautiful prison industrial complexes off the sides of the road and in drug rehab facilities, right? So, and there's two things from my perspective, just give me 2 more minutes, 2 things from my perspective that's destroyed the nation. Your college professor that everybody couldn't wait to send their kids to have their kid, to have Jenny returned to you as a gray-haired freak, right? And then your cowardice, submissive, do-nothing pastor that has an entire agenda just for Sunday morning concerts and smoke machines. And by the way, give him $20 to pay for that parking lot. All right? Until we see the transition from the peacetime pastor to the wartime pastor, and until men figure out that they're men, we're going to continue seeing the collapse of this nation. All of that said, I got to leave, but I am going to head up. I'm going to head up a chapter. I want to make it a fairly broader radius of people. So if you're interested, can I have your phone number and your email? And as we begin to develop this thing, I'll contact you.
Well, if you're starting chapter John verse 8, go through me and I'll follow along. And those who are members and those who are interested in being members. Does anybody have a question about membership?
Excuse me a second, okay? I really appreciate you coming here. I'm the president of Pennsylvania Integrity Network. Beverly is our vice president, okay? And we are here to get information, not here to debate you, okay? And if we start this debating, we can set a debating session up. All right, I saw it happening down at the Birch County Patriots, where they brought your group in and they brought another group in. Constitution of States, and they each got a person up there. They asked questions and got their information, okay? And we decided, you got this Constitution of State information out there all over the place. We wanted to bring the other side. That was our purpose here. So you can get information, disseminate it, get educated. Because our state is pushing it, and the same people that gave us Act 77, okay, that's unconstitutional, but yet they codified it in our state anyway. All right? And if we're going to deal with these here people that are not ethical, you think they're going to be ethical. And we got to be aware of that there. We need all the information we can disseminate. We need to educate one another. We got to work together with all our patriot groups. We have the Pennsylvania Patriot Coalition, which I'm the outreach coordinator for in the state of Pennsylvania. We are trying to educate people. We got to take our local government back. We just took a freaking beating. And I do not blame the Democrats, I blame the Republicans for that. We took a beating. because they want to play the middle of the road. All right? We don't know what happened in Northampton County here with the machines. How come this happened with our machine? Does everyone believe in election integrity in this room? Do you believe we have it?
No.
No. And why not? Because our state legislatures, our federal judges will not give us standing to hear our cases. We know we're being diluted. We know our vote's being diluted. And what are we doing? Our GOP is suppressing our own vote. I blame Republicans for not coming out to the poll in numbers.
Yes, right.
It's time we step up together, folks, and work together. If you haven't signed our book, please sign our book over there before you leave so we can keep you on the email list. And you got Beverly's information, contact her. My card is here, contact me. We're here to work together. We don't care what group you're with. We're here to work together. Thank you for coming, brother.
Well done. Good luck.